Tonight, our special coverage on Israel's war in Palestine as United Nations chief invokes Article 99 of the UN Charter to maintain international peace and security. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Aisha Ashraf. Today is the 60th day since Israel started its indiscriminate war on Palestinians. Israeli military tanks are advancing towards the center of Khan Yunis city. There has been continuous artillery shelling and clashes the previous night in the Gaza region. The UN Special Rapporteur says there is an urgent need to halt the massacre of civilians as Gaza hospitals struggle to manage patients requiring immediate care. A senior Hamas official says there will be no negotiations with Israel unless it halts its Gaza offensive. Israeli leaders say they are committed to continuing the war. Ground fighting in various Gaza areas persists. Palestinian fighters are using anti-tank missiles and various weapons to destroy and attack Israeli tanks. They are trying to compel Israeli forces to withdraw from areas where civilians are still present. On the other hand, the Israeli army is increasing the rate of its attacks. It is indiscriminately destroying residential neighborhoods to force residents to flee southward. Death is pervasive throughout the besieged enclave, with heavy Israeli bombardment occurring in almost all parts of Gaza. Many Palestinians are fleeing to Rafah, often on foot, only to discover a lack of shelter, water, and food. Displaced Palestinians are questioning the world's awareness and pleading for assistance. The World Health Organization is warning of an increase in the risk of diseases due to insufficient sanitation. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says limited aid distributions have occurred for the third consecutive day in Rafah. In the adjacent Khan Yunis governorate, aid distribution has largely ceased due to the intensity of hostilities. The central area remains largely cut off from the south due to Israeli forces' restrictions on movement along main roads since December 1st. At the time of writing, the death toll in Gaza has surpassed 16,248. The figure includes 7,112 children and 4,885 women. Israel has targeted 286 medical professionals, 32 paramedics, and 81 journalists. 7,600 Palestinians are missing. 43,616 are injured. In the occupied West Bank, the death toll has reached 254. There have been 1,200 casualties in Israel. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has deployed a powerful diplomatic tool by invoking Article 99 of the UN Charter. The Article 99 states that the UN chief may bring to the attention of the Security Council any matter which threatens international peace and security. This marks the first time Guterres has utilized this article since assuming the role of UN Secretary General in 2017. In the letter, Guterres urgently calls on the Security Council to address a potential humanitarian catastrophe. The letter advocates for the declaration of a humanitarian ceasefire. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has issued a warning to Israel. He says Israel will face serious consequences if it proceeds with the threat to attack Hamas officials on Turkish soil. President Erdogan says Turkey has formally petitioned the International Criminal Court to prosecute the Israeli Prime Minister and other officials for alleged war crimes in Gaza. He says thousands of lawyers from various countries are supporting the petition. This response follows remarks from the head of Israel's domestic security agency, Shin Bet. The security head had earlier said his agency is ready to eliminate Hamas in various locations, including Lebanon, Turkey, and Qatar. Palestinian and human rights advocates are slamming the recent resolution approved by the US House of Representatives. The resolution equates anti-Zionism with antisemitism. The Republican-led resolution passed with a vote of 311 to 14. The resolution comes in response to the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States. However, it further categorically stated that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. The resolution also condemns the slogan "From the river to the sea." Palestinians consider the slogan as a call for equality in Palestine. Advocates of Palestinian rights argue the resolution is an attempt to stifle voices that criticize Israeli policies as hate speech. They're calling it a political move aimed at silencing those advocating for Palestinian rights and peace. The resolution has stirred a heated debate within the Democratic Party over supports for Israel's actions in Gaza. Israeli authorities have banned a Palestinian human rights organization following the report of the sexual assault of a 15-year-old Palestinian boy by an Israeli interrogator. Former U.S. official Josh Paul disclosed this information in a recent interview to CNN. Paul says a report was compiled by Defense for Children International, Palestine. It was submitted to the U.S. State Department and documented the victim's ordeal 2 years ago at the Al-Mastobiya detention center. The report reveals the boy was subject to sexual abuse and endured severe physical pain. The organization had previously filed numerous complaints with Israeli authorities about similar cases but received no response. They then sought assistance from the U.S. officials. Soon after the organization filed a report to the U.S. State Department, Israeli forces raided its offices twice. Israeli officials then branded the organization as a terrorist entity. Despite this, the organization continues its work of documenting the plight of Palestinian children detained by Israeli forces. Since 2000, more than 13,000 Palestinian children have been detained, interrogated, prosecuted, and imprisoned by Israeli forces. Israel continues to detain hundreds of children each year. Many of them are subject to ill treatment and torture. British journalist and author Yvonne Ridley has accused Israel of resorting to deliberate strategy of deception and lies. She says Israel has failed to substantiate its claim that Hamas fighters raped Israeli women during the October 7th attack. In an article published in the Middle East Monitor, the British journalist calls the story of the beheaded Israeli babies the most damaging hoax gone viral at an alarming rate. Independent journalists Max Blumenthal and Alexander Rubenstein debunked the false narrative after thoroughly investigating the claim. Blumenthal also uncovered discrepancies and manipulations in Israeli rape allegations by Hamas fighters. Ridley says last week, the independent news website, The Gray Zone, published eyewitness accounts of how an Israeli tank opened fire on a house on October 7th. The fire killed 12 Israeli non-combatants. Evidence of what Israel calls friendly fire killings have also been provided by Israeli media. Media reports say Israeli helicopters may have killed many attendees of the Nova Electronic Music Festival. They also say Hamas was unaware of the festival taking place at the time. An international non-governmental organization of public figures is calling for an immediate review of military assistance provided to Israel. Referred to as the Elders, the organization consists of senior statesmen, peace activists, and human rights advocates. The organization was founded by Nelson Mandela in 2007. The group condemns Israel's actions. The Elders say arms supply to Israel is risking a cycle of mass atrocities. They say the U.S.'s statement calling Israel to act in accordance with international humanitarian law must be backed by action to ensure protection of civilians. The Elders also acknowledge the long-standing issue of military occupation and state terror in the region. They are calling for a ceasefire, adherence to international humanitarian law, and the release of hostages. They are calling on influential leaders, especially in the US, Europe, and the region, to push for a permanent ceasefire. Survivors of the 1937 Guernica massacre are showing solidarity with Palestine. Guernica was tragically bombed by the Nazi forces during the Spanish Civil War. A report by the Times magazine soon after the incident said the object of the bombardment was to demoralize the civil population and destroy the cradle of the Basque race. Hundreds of survivors gathered in the Spanish marketplace this past Friday, forming a human mosaic draped in the colors of the Palestinian flag. The symbolic gesture aligns with Spain's historical support for Palestinian rights. Unlike other Western nations, Spain has been vocal in its criticism of Israel. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says Israel's actions may not comply with international humanitarian law. His comments have caused tension with Israel and prompted international discussions. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.